We have the latest update on the political stitch-up against Boris Johnson, as the former Prime Minister is now going to be suing Rishi Sunak's government. Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the channel that challenges the mainstream media and the political establishment, from the left-wing nutters to the globalist elite. And today, Boris Johnson's saga continues. Sick and tired of this already, guys. I don't know. We have to talk about it. We have to report it, because I think some stuff is going to come out. Throughout the day, we're going to have a number of updates for you guys on this issue and, of course, all the other important political affairs of the day. But this one is going to escalate, and I think the reason it's important to report on this is mainly because I think we can expose some of the people inside the establishment who have their own agenda and vendetta and everything else. So, what's going on now? Last night we reported that Boris Johnson is in trouble again because his journal has been leaked or been passed along to the police from the Cabinet Office. And saying, well, when he was sick, some people visited him, including Jacob Rees-Mogg and some others, and saying he broke the rules. Now, Boris Johnson says, we didn't break the rules. It was part of the process during the lockdown days, and people visited me and everything else, and it was work and usual stuff, obviously. And so we're going to find out how this police investigation finishes. They seem very confident, Team Boris, that it's not going to get anywhere. But it is going to be exposing a lot of people. We've already exposed Sue Gray, the so-called impartial civil servant, former civil servant. I think we're going to have to expose a number of other people today on this channel, and we will. So we have a Team Boris coming out to say that it appears that the Cabinet Office has written to the Privileges Committee, claiming that these events constitute lockdown breaches. That is not true, and it is seriously defamatory. So we know that Boris Johnson mostly is being scrutinized over this image, this photo, this so-called birthday party. And somehow Rishi Sunak, who also got a fine, seems to be getting away with it. He received the fine, he paid the fine, and now he's Prime Minister, and no one really cares about Rishi Sunak's role in this. No one really cares about Simon Case, the head of civil service. No one really cares about all the civil servants who were breaking the rules on a regular basis. They were having drinks and parties and everything else. It was mostly, the whole Downing Street Partygate stuff was mostly about the staff of Downing Street and Cabinet Office and the Treasury. Not necessarily just the Prime Minister or former Prime Minister or the Chancellor at the time. It was the staff. Somehow, they're getting it away with everything. So, not that, again, I'm not saying this to say, well, I now support Boris Johnson. No, I don't. The guy made a mess. We know that. But we have to remain objective. This is a political stitch-up. So, we have an ally, former Prime Minister Boris Johnson, coming to say, is this an attempt by Oliver Dowden to stitch him up? It feels very political, and as if people are determined to keep him bogged down in Partygate. But it is going to fall apart very quickly. We are talking about a handful of events, mostly work meetings. All of them were covered by the rules. Now, Oliver Dowden was also the same person who, at the end of the day, just like Rishi Sunak, decided to stab the former Prime Minister in the back. And there was a lot of bad clashes between the two at the time. Things are going to escalate, unfortunately, and it's not really looking too good for Rishi Sunak's government, because they are getting closer to the general election, and they thought that after everything that happened with Dominic Raab and Sue Gray, they could just keep everything calm and quiet, wait for inflation to come down, wait for the GDP growth to keep going up, and everything else just calms down a little bit, and claim that we are a strong and stable government. Starmer is a threat. Now they are helping Keir Starmer win the next election. But the Tory management, they are giving ammo to the establishment, and the rest of the civil service and the mainstream media and everybody else are helping Keir Starmer win the next election. So having a cake is bad, but having a curry and beer is fine with Angela Rayner and Keir Starmer. We know that already. Double standards are there. So Boris Johnson's lawyers have now written to the police forces involved to explain in detail why the Cabinet Office is entirely wrong in its assertions. A friend of Mr. Johnson said his political enemies in the Cabinet Office have just handed the diary entries over to the police without telling him or asking him any questions. It is nakedly political. It does. I mean, if it walks political, if it talks political, it is political. And as I said earlier, later today on this channel, we are going to also expose a number of key figures, part of the deep establishment in this country, part of the Cabinet Office, the so-called British deep state, who have links with the outside world. So we're going to talk about that as well. But one of the figures who visited the Prime Minister was his colleague, Jacob Rees-Mogg, who now hosts a show on GB News. And now Jacob Rees-Mogg said last night that he did visit Chequers during the pandemic, and Mr. Johnson was diligent about lockdown rules. The former cabinet minister told GB News that the story showed that there were some people who will never rest until they have hounded Boris further and further. I mean, this is absolutely true in terms of the political stitch-up. You don't have to be a Boris Johnson supporter to see what's going on here. Now, the issue that we have is that the political left believe that Boris Johnson is some sort of hard-right Trumpian threat to the establishment. The guy was a liberal establishment himself. Obviously, there were some differences between Boris Johnson and the likes of Keir Starmer, we know that, or even Rishi Sunak. But not to the level of Trumpianism. It makes no sense. So, we also have heard from Christopher Hope that one former Tory cabinet minister who texted him last night said that I didn't really believe in the blob until now. They're political civil servants. But the events of the last few days, the repeated briefing against Suella Braverman and now tonight's action against Boris Johnson are beginning to make me think again. This former Tory cabinet minister also said that if the Prime Minister's team is somehow encouraging all this, they need to back off fast. And if they are not, they need to take some tough action for once against civil servants who are leaking against ministers. That's a very good point, because if Downing Street and the Cabinet Office are going hand in hand with this, then they got to stop this. And I mean, obviously, I go further, say just get rid of them, kick them out, including the Prime Minister and the Chancellor and everybody else. But we have to wait till the next election. We also are going to have a quick update later on about Tory MPs, backbenchers who are kicking off in the House of Commons. They might make a move against the Prime Minister. Again, I know, they do it on a regular basis, but this one is serious. But if it's not Downing Street directly, if it's not Rishi Sunak or Jeremy Hunt or Oliver Dowden, then they're going to have to investigate. They're going to have to find some people and kick them out. Throw them under the bus. Because if they are going after Boris and Suella and these guys now, they're going to come for you next time. They're going to come for everybody else. And this is a big problem because clearly we've got some sort of infection inside the British establishment, and we have to sort it out. Drain the swamp of the establishment. Next, Christopher Hope also said another senior Tory source told him that there is now an open witch hunt against right-wingers in the Conservative Party. The leadership of the party must shut this down immediately. Active conversations are underway among MPs about how to respond to this, and nothing is off the table. Now, that last sentence is very important, which means we are going to have to come back in about an hour to give you guys some juicy updates on what is going on in the House of Commons. I'm just waiting to hear from my sources in the Westminster bubble to find out exactly what they're up to. Some of the Tory MPs are texting me, giving me some details about their plan to go ahead with, as they would claim, take back control of their party from the liberal establishment elitists. So we're going to find out soon. But the best thing you can do is support the movement of independent media by subscribing to the channel, and make sure to click like and share the video. I'm Maya Tusi, and we are the media.